If you've been following me for a little while, you know that one thing that really gets on my nerves is outdated career advice. And it's so many people are repeating these myths, including career coaches themselves. So I want to make sure that you know which of these things are just plain wrong and which myths not to believe, so that you don't slow down your career by believing them. So the other day I was looking at a forum where one career coach was saying, oh, all these young people are wanting to quit their jobs these days because they want to save their sanity and they have a toxic work environment and they just know that they need to leave so they can save their mental health. Well, in my 20 years of career coaching, I have found that that's a bad idea because it's bad to have a gap on your CV. It doesn't look good to your new employer when it comes time to apply for that new job. So avoid, as much as your mental health might be suffering, avoid having that gap and start looking for a new job while you're already in a job. We've all heard this advice, right? Don't quit your job until you have found the new one. But, I mean, this is crazy. Don't worry about saving your mental health. Don't worry about saving your sanity because you need to look good for this future unknown employer, right? When they look at your CV so that you look good on paper and avoid this gap. Well, your mental health is everything. If you don't have your mental health, if you don't save your sanity, what do you have? You're going to have worse problems than a gap not looking perfect for that future unknown employer. And this is old school advice because back in the day, you used to get in a company in that entry-level job, you work your way up, and a lot of people were working for the same company for their entire lives. Or maybe they work for 2 to 3 companies over the course of their whole lives. But as I'm sure you've noticed, that is increasingly rare these days. Companies are not retaining their employees as long. People are being laid off way more easily, and people are getting shorter term contracts. And so it is also your right as an employee to not stick around as long as in the past, just as employers aren't keeping you around as long as in the past. And I can't think of a better reason to have a gap on your CV than to maintain your mental health. I mean, if your job is that bad and that toxic that you really feel that you need to save your mental health, well, you probably do need to save your mental health. Now, I'm not saying that everyone should just quit their jobs because you have a bad day or something like that. Everyone's situation is different. Every toxic environment has a different level of toxicity and all that. That's really a case-by-case kind of a thing that, you shouldn't just listen to someone in a random YouTube video saying quit your job or stay in your job, etc. It really depends. However, it's really important not to make your decisions based on that kind of outdated advice. Don't make a decision about your own life because every single day that you stay in a toxic job is a waste of your life. That is one less day of your life. And it's not just one day, because that day is going to have a repercussion on the next day. I mean, you're going to wake up the next day being more drained and more tired because of the day before when you were in the toxic job. And then the longer you stay, the worse the repercussions on your confidence, on your health, etc., etc. So there are real consequences to this. It's not just about looking good for that future unknown employer. There are other more important factors at play, like you and your own health. And so if you need to quit your job because you want to save your sanity or for whatever other reason, I mean, maybe you want a sabbatical, maybe you want to not have the day that you graduate from university up until the day that you retire at the age of 65 or whatever, be nonstop work. Maybe you want your life to look a little bit different. Maybe there are sabbaticals here and there. Maybe, there's so many things you can do with your life. Who says that life needs to be from this age to that age, work without a gap? Where does this idea come from? It's all old school thinking. You are allowed to create the life that you want, whatever kind of gaps those look like. And what's important afterwards is how you tell your story. Because sure, some employers might look at those gaps and say, well, why is there a gap? They might ask that question. Your CV might look weird if you have too many types of gaps, depending on what those gaps look like, depending on what you've done in between. But that comes down to your branding, how you tell your story, etc. You should not be sacrificing your real, actual life for something that you think will make your branding look better. That's like not enjoying your life so that you can go and take some nice Instagram pictures, and you have the nice Instagram pictures, but you hate your life as a result. You don't want to do that. You want to enjoy your life, have this amazing life, and then you can get a couple of nice shots for Instagram that show that you're enjoying your life. But you don't want to fall for having it the other way around and hate your life, but have the nice Instagram shots. And trying to have this perfect CV, but sacrificing your life is similar to that. And guess what? The sad reality is if you do that, you're probably not going to impress employers as much as you think you are. You might be doing all these things to look good on paper, and at the end of the day, you still don't get valued in the new economy, and employers still don't see your value because you're just playing the game the same way as everyone else. You're just doing all the old school things, trying to look good on paper, it's almost like, teacher's pet, I have the perfect CV. And that is working less and less well in the new economy. So enjoy your life, do what you want to do with your life, and then figure out how to brand yourself accordingly to get the jobs that you want as well. But if your perfect life looks like having a couple of gaps on your CV, then do that, right? And I had a client in my program recently who had a similar situation. She had a really toxic job. She ended up leaving the job. She had savings. She had a situation where she could do that. And she was feeling really guilty and feeling like she needs to just get a job, not to have a gap on her CV. So that's where we discussed, hey, enjoy the gap. So many people realize when they have a gap that they realize who they are again. Now that their time isn't being owned by a job that they don't enjoy, they get to reconnect with themselves. This happened with a lot of people during the pandemic. They started to have a bit more time. Not all of us, sadly, but some people started to have a bit more time, and they kind of rediscovered who they were and started asking themselves the question, why am I in this job? This doesn't feel like me. This is not me. But they didn't even realize that before because they weren't able to understand who they actually were. So having space, having gaps, if you use them the right way, can be an extremely valuable life experience to have. Just something to consider. Don't follow, be very, very careful about this old school career advice that is still floating around, still being told very adamantly by a lot of career coaches who have been coaching for many, many years, but don't realize that things have actually changed since then. And just make sure that whatever you do, you are doing what's best for you and living life on your terms and not trying to adjust to hypothetical employers. All right, see you on the next video.